Peter Gray, an American psychology researcher, wrote, "Children are forced to attend school where they are stripped of most of their rights. The debate shouldn't be about whether the school is prison, because unless you want to change the definition of prison, it is." Throughout history, the oppressiveness of schooling has been documented. Hans Christian Andersen shared that his darkest years were in school when he was abused to improve his character and became depressed when the faculty discouraged him from writing. Beatrix Potter, author of the whimsical Peter Rabbit story, admitted, "Thank goodness I was never sent to school. It would have rubbed off some of the originality." Many share the worry that traditional schooling suppresses creativity, fosters conformity, and prioritizes producing workers over thinkers. This concern echoes throughout history, resonating as strongly today as it did centuries ago. However, alongside these long-standing worries, a modern issue has emerged in parallel. It's now evident that contemporary schooling not only aims to shape children to meet government-mandated educational standards, but also intensifies ideological indoctrination. What might have once been a concern relegated to the political fringes a decade ago now deeply troubles even moderate parents, who fear the negative impact of the education system on their children. Supporters of homeschooling have been prevalent since before the establishment of formal public education systems. However, in the last 4 years, there has been a notable resurgence in advocacy for homeschooling. Countering the mainstream education system, more families are turning to homeschooling as an alternative to make education more customized and adhere to their family values, not the values the government tells them to believe in. Homeschooling also allows students the freedom to be at home and create their own schedule. The recent surge in homeschooling interest reflects a broader concern among parents that extends beyond the confines of school systems, impacting both public and private K through 12 education. Many homeschooling parents perceive their children as being manipulated and utilized as pawns in political and social agendas. They ask, do the teachers, school officials, and government truly have their children's best interest at heart? For many parents, the answer is no. School shutdowns were also a major motivator for families to make the switch to homeschooling. A 2020 Gallup poll found that 10% of parents plan to homeschool in the coming year, which was double the percentage compared to 2019. The pandemic prompted a resurgence of home-based education. This shift offered families revealing insights into the downfalls of the conventional 7-hour school day, highlighting its potential excesses and how swiftly educational practices can be altered by systemic directives. Despite these observations, the majority of Americans continue to enroll their children in traditional schools. However, there is a noticeable increase in the number of families opting for homeschooling. This raises several questions. When was homeschooling considered the standard in America? When did education transition into the rigid system where children are groomed to conform and obey without question? And finally, what might a society look like if it reclaims education to prioritize the well-being of the younger generation over governmental agendas? In 1800s America, homeschooling was common practice until significant societal changes prompted education reform and the standardization of the American public education system. This shift, influenced by the diverse cultural and religious backgrounds of incoming immigrants, led to a movement towards institutionalized education, resulting in homeschooling being banned in many states. Compulsory education in America began in the 19th century, with Massachusetts leading the way by enacting the first such law in 1852. This legislation mandated that every city and town provide primary education that included grammar and basic arithmetic. Parents who did not comply with sending their children to school faced fines, and in extreme cases could lose parental rights, with their children placed in apprenticeships. This pioneering move by Massachusetts helped pave the way for the creation of nationwide school districts and state boards of education. However, as with most significant societal reforms, there's typically an individual whose vision we can attribute its inception to. For many, this figure is Horace Mann, often referred to as the father of American education. As mentioned earlier, the late 1800s witnessed a significant influx of immigrants, placing America on the cusp of ideological transformation. Mann recognized that education was a powerful tool for shaping the future of a nation. Education, in Mann's view, should prioritize the formation of behavioral patterns to enforce mental habits, rather than the other way around. Specifically, It wasn't about acquiring the ability to learn, but about conforming to established norms, with predictability being the ultimate objective. Horace Mann recognized that the transitioning world demanded different skills than the agrarian society it was replacing. The rationale was simple. The decentralized educational options of the time couldn't keep pace with the demands for new skills, necessitating a more coordinated approach. The proliferation of schoolhouses and teachers in the colonies and early United States, especially in the early 19th century, was largely attributed to Mann and his associates' efforts. It wasn't until the mid-20th century that America saw the resurgence of interest in homeschooling, driven by growing skepticism towards public education and the promotion of deschooling theories by advocates like John Holt. The 1980s marked a turning point as states began to legalize homeschooling, acknowledging the various reasons parents opted for this form of education. In 1992, homeschooling became legally recognized across all 50 states. The following year, in 1993, President Clinton enacted the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Subsequently, the homeschooling population grew to between 500,000 and 750,000 students by 1995, with estimates reaching 2 million by the early 2000s. It is important to note the system Horace Mann helped establish reflected his beliefs, prioritizing certain aspects over others, and often treating students as groups rather than individuals. These compromises were deemed necessary to transition from an agrarian to an industrial society. Characteristics of the industrial era, such as respect for authority, punctuality, measurement, basic literacy, and arithmetic, were ingrained in the educational system to produce individuals fit for industrial employment. One could draw parallels between the bell ringing at the end of a class and the historical use of bells in early capitalism to mark the start and finish of the workday down to the exact minute. However, we now find ourselves in a vastly different world today than Horace Mann's world. The industrial mindset that served its purpose for over a century is no longer adequate in today's rapidly evolving landscape of technological advancement, financial complexity, political fragmentation, and social polarization. An increasing number of people are recognizing alternative schooling methods, such as homeschooling, as a solution to circumvent the shortcomings and potentially nefarious motivations of the conventional school system. As its popularity grows, homeschooling surpasses its stereotypes of being solely embraced by religious extremists and producing socially disadvantaged children. Studies and statistics not only refute these stereotypes, but also highlight the potential academic and social benefits of homeschooling. By 2004, 83% of American colleges had established formal admissions procedures for assessing homeschooled applicants, who demonstrate a college enrollment rate similar to that of their peers from public schools. Research indicates that homeschooled students excel academically, typically outperforming national averages on both the SAT and ACT exams and frequently entering college with more credits. Furthermore, studies reveal that, on average, homeschooled students maintain higher freshman year GPAs and graduation rates than their peers. Beyond academic prowess, studies suggest that homeschooled students navigate the emotional transition to college effectively. A study by Texas A&M University found that they experience similar levels of communication apprehension as their traditionally educated peers, while research published in the Journal of College Student Development suggests that their transitional experiences parallel those of conventionally educated students, addressing issues such as loneliness, exposure to different values, and increased independence. Contrary to stereotypes, research indicates that homeschooled students engage in a variety of extracurricular activities, participating in an average of 8 social activities outside the home and consuming less television compared to traditionally educated students. Additionally, they exhibit higher self-esteem and are less susceptible to peer pressure. What about religion? Some may be quick to dismiss homeschooling because they personally don't value religion, and consequently, they assume that homeschooling is predominantly associated with religious families, leading them to question its legitimacy or effectiveness. Alternatively, others might view homeschooling as solely aligned with conservative ideals and thus disregard it on those grounds. A recent Washington Post Schar School poll revealed that today's homeschooling community comprises families with diverse political, religious, and educational beliefs. It's shedding its stigma among liberals and those who aren't regular churchgoers. Homeschooling is now driven more by individual family circumstances than shared ideology or political goals. Homeschooling represents a choice to empower families to shape their children's education, safeguard their creativity and independence, and prevent them from becoming mere tools of the state. Homeschooling embodies a freedom that we would sorely miss if it were once again taken away, as it was in the late 1800s. This is why we must remain vigilant, especially as government influence seems to infiltrate personal values and beliefs more deeply. If homeschooling continues to gain popularity, one could hope that it would foster intellectually and emotionally adept individuals who think freely. For over a century, the powerful elite have exploited the standardized school system to cultivate consumers rather than critical thinkers who question the world around them. Many of us observe our nation's system and recognize that it does not serve our interests nor those of our children. Why then should we entrust the shaping of our children's formative years to entities that do not prioritize our needs? This is why homeschooling will continue to be sought after. It represents a countercultural response to systems that no longer align with our values and aspirations. If you like this video, please consider supporting our channel by subscribing, sharing, and liking this video. Thank you, and don't forget to always push the boundary.